Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Sex Doctors.
I thought it would be interesting to talk about porn today.
Porn.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is such, I think, a controversial part of sex today. And there are many elements of porn that don't even get addressed. So I
Right.
thought maybe we could have a little conversation.
Great. It is a controversial topic.
Yeah, it's very,
And people don't really, it's controversial. People don't really talk about it, but everybody's got an opinion.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about?
Before we start, a small disclaimer. The Sex Doctors podcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice.
Well, I think that one of the things that sometimes I talk to my clients about is what how porn functions for them, like what purposes it serves for them.
Why do people watch it?
Yeah. So, and it's an interesting conversation when I'm working with a couple where one person is kind of pro porn and one person is kind of against porn, and that's easy and fine, like because we
Right.
all.
Now, I would guess that most of the time the pro is the man and the anti is the
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah.
Right?
In fact, I don't know that I have worked maybe twice with women who felt like they were watching too much porn. But I've never, and it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but I've never worked with a couple where a guy said to me, his female partner is watching porn.
Isn't that funny?
I know.
Yeah, that's funny.
So I've had a few women come in and want to work on it on their own.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever had a couple where he was complaining about her porn use, it happens all the time where she's complaining about his. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Like I totally understand. This is a complicated issue where there are many sides. So when she's saying she doesn't like it, I completely understand. So even though I often, or at least sometimes, prescribe porn sort of in my practice to help people with whatever issue they've got, I completely understand the negativity about it, or
Right.
people's concern that it's going to get out of hand, because it does for people get out of hand.
You just triggered a memory for me of a patient I had who I treated with low testosterone, and it was with a gel, and I'd given him sort of standard dose, and he came back and asked him how he was doing. He says, "Good," and but I cut the dose you gave me in half. I say, "Half? Why?" He says, "Well, because I wanted to have enough sex drive to have sex with my wife, but not so much that I wanted to watch porn." And that's what it had. That's what had happened at his full dose. So he cut it back.
Because he was just like so driven to
Yeah.
masturbate all the time.
Yeah.
He didn't have it left for his partner.
He just want. Well, I don't think it was either or. He just think. So, listen. People have attitudes. The younger folks, I think, are just used to porn.
Yeah.
I think people of my generation, certainly, that still there's shame associated with it. A lot of people make judgments about that it's not the right thing to do, right? And that porn is bad and dirty and they shouldn't and don't want to do it. Not everybody watches porn, but of course, it's now so easily available that most people get to see some whether they want to or not.
Man, I remember, I don't know if it was the first time I saw porn, but it very well could have been. And I was in college.
Yeah.
Like kids today are seeing it when they're like 12. And I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Like the average age of first exposure to porn is 13. That means that's average.
Wow.
That means half the
Wow.
grades are seeing it.
13.
13. Like what
Wow.
grade is that?
I don't know.
But it's
Eighth, maybe.
Yeah. Well, so I was in college and I remember it. I was alarmed. Like I knew what it was.
Yeah.
But I walked into a guy's dorm room, a friend of mine, and he had it on, and I was just, what the fuck? Like, it creeped me out.
Yeah.
Like, and that was college.
Yeah.
I'd had relationships, like this whole sex thing. I was well aware. But with these 12-year-olds, these 11-year-olds, these 10-year-olds, they don't have any freaking clue what they're seeing, and that's just something I really wish people would become aware of, like parents and stuff. You don't think your kid's seeing it? They're seeing it. They're not trying to see it. It's showing up on their phone, or their friends are showing them.
Yeah.
And I'll bring the research data next time we do a show specifically on this. But this is where kids are getting their sex education. So if it's alarming to adults, guess what? Your kid is freaking out. They don't know what they're seeing. So you need to start talking to them about it, because you're not going to probably prevent them from seeing it, but you can help them understand it or be prepared for it a little bit. Now, here, I've just gotten off on this tangent, but that,
But I'm not sure that the parents know exactly what porn,
yeah,
what's on there.
that's probably true.
Especially if they have kids. Like there are a lot of people, especially if the kids are sort of a little bit younger, they're swamped, right?
Yeah,
They may,
the parents are
they may,
Yeah,
parents may not be having sex. They may not be feeling sexual.
Right.
They're not watching porn. They don't know what's out there.
It's so funny you say it, because I was talking to one of my brothers about this issue and how concerned I am about adolescents. And he said to me, these adolescents, their parents probably aren't even having sex. They're thinking, I'm not seeing porn, my kid's not seeing it, which
Right.
is not how it goes.
That's right.
But that
Yeah.
probably is what they're thinking.
Yeah. And the variety of stuff that's there now, with the AI and the
Yeah.
fantasy stuff now. Yeah.
Yeah. So one point I think I just really would like parents to realize, if you have a kid or an adolescent, if you haven't talked to them about what porn is, you've got to. And you just have to say some basic stuff like
Like what? Yeah.
you say, this is sex theater. This is theater. It's not what,
It's not real.
it's not real.
Yeah.
It's not what most people even want to be doing.
Yeah.
It's something that kind of gets people's like brains, and it's very, what would be the word? It gets
It's
your
impactful. Yeah.
It's impactful.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it when you see it. And but what it is not what you are going to want to be doing. That's not even what I want to say.
Well, what I would say is that, in my practice, the effects of porn that I saw, or the adverse effects were a lot of the guys, especially if they were inexperienced sexually with another human being,
Right. They think
they felt like they were totally inadequate in terms of their size, their equipment, and
Right.
because they see these guys with enormous penises, right? Well, that's like 1% of the 1%, right? It's just like some women are selected to become porn stars because their breasts are enormous, right? But the guys think they see 10 of these guys and they're all, hugely endowed. They think, I don't match up to that.
Right.
And then they're embarrassed about it all. And the other thing I think that is important, especially for younger folks, is kind of what you were mentioning, is that the scripts that they have in these things, they're not scripts that happen in real life. Right? Like, you don't meet somebody, you say, hey, how's it going? And within 30 seconds, you're having wild sex. Like, it doesn't happen that way.
Or the popularity of choking now on college campuses.
Yeah.
We believe it's because young kids are seeing.
Say something about that, because some people may not know what you're talking about.
So on college campuses today, and for the last, I'm going to say 6 or so years that it's been surveyed and researched, it's super popular for choking to happen during sex.
For the man to be choking the woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in one survey, for example, in their last sexual experience, a third of women were choked in their last sexual.
A third of women. That's incredible.
It's incredible.
Incredible.
And this college age, these are the kids that started seeing porn when they were 12
Yeah.
or 13, right? This
Yeah.
is the group.
Porn teaches them what's not only what's possible, but even to some extent what might be routine.
Right.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, I really don't care what people do sexually, and that's the truth. But if kids grow up thinking this is typical, then it will be typical, as it is now on
Right.
college campuses. And so what are they missing? What are they losing by focusing on this kind of,
Yeah.
this is one kind of sex, but there's so much more to sex.
Yeah, I can tell you, when I was in college, nobody was choking anybody. It wasn't a thought. Like, it wasn't. No,
And that's fine.
we didn't have porn. Access to this stuff. It didn't exist.
And when we were in college, how did you get to sex? You developed relationships. You learned how to talk to people. You learned how to be kind to people. You learned how to share things. And
Listen, I remember back when sort of porn was basically like Playboy magazine, and I know they were smuttier ones but I remember roughly when they went to covering up the vaginal area for the women,
Yeah.
and then finally exposing it. Like, that was an event.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it used to just be breasts.
Yeah.
And then it was everything was revealed.
Well, so now it's not only that, like every orifice is totally revealed, but now like the younger people are watching anime porn.
Yeah.
It's completely a whole other level. It's cartoon, of course, but it is superhuman sex now.
Yeah.
So now we're not even using real bodies.
Right. And
Now
you can do anything you
distorted
want with.
Now we're in a whole other realm.
Yeah.
So, bottom line is kids are using this as sex education. That's a big concern to me.
Yeah.
So when we talk about this topic as being controversial, so that's one of the problems. I really worry about this because we are not taking care of our kids and adolescents around porn. People are just ignoring it.
Yeah.
And, porn's got more rights than kids right now. And we need to kind of like take care of kids. And that's not an anti-porn statement, but it certainly is a pro-child statement.
Yeah.
So that's my big concern.
Yeah.
But that yes, porn can be used to be helpful for people, and I use it in my practice all the time with people to help them explore what their interests are or kind of push boundaries so that they can find more excitement in their sex life as adults. But they're adults and they know what sex is already, and they know what relationships are already, and that's a whole different ball game than what we're doing, just letting kids learn sex this way. And that's what they'll even say in surveys like in other countries, because we can give kids access to porn in the US, but we're certainly not going to do survey research on kids and porn in the US because that's not cool.
Right.
So the research we have on kids and porn is coming from other countries, and they're saying, yeah, this is where I'm getting my sex ed. And we're not asking our kids, we're just showing them the porn.
Yeah. What also strikes me is that there's some data about early sexual experiences essentially imprint the brain.
Yes.
Like, it becomes the thing that turns the person on for decades, possibly. Right. And
forever.
Yeah.
So, John Money came up with this idea initially decades ago, calling it love maps. And they still use that concept, which is when you are first like really turned on as a child, whatever is associated with that becomes like a part of your fantasy map for the rest of your life. So that's what's going to get you off. So that when like you're having a hard time getting moving in your mind, you go back to that fantasy, it's going to take you there.
Right. So if your first image that gets you off is like sex with aliens,
Right.
you're going to have a hard time connecting that to human beings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or if your first image that gets you off, and it doesn't have to be exciting as much as an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
So you watch porn where there's a lot of aggression.
Mm-hmm.
That's an adrenaline rush,
Mm-hmm.
and it gets mixed up in sex.
Yeah.
Well, now that's what you need for the rest of your life to get off. Now, it's not always the case, but it absolutely can be the case.
Yeah.
So I some people will watch this and say that this is being like overly dramatic, but I don't know. I think that we're looking at humanity here in the future of connection and intimacy, and I'd rather be a little bit too cautious than just continue to let this just go. And we're just living this massive experiment right now about like AI and tech and the future of humanity. This is a completely not controlled experiment, and our kids are the ones that are being experimented on, and I think that that's a horrible thing.
Yeah. Well, I think you make an important distinction because there are a lot of people who watch porn regularly. They don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
It serves their needs, and it's a day-to-day experience, and they don't feel like they're any the worse for it.
Right.
But I think the distinction you're making is that kids
Yeah.
are being exposed. This is just really their sex education.
This is their
And there's nobody that's watching or monitoring or deciding this is appropriate for them. And they've really got nobody else to even talk to about it,
Right.
except for maybe other kids
kids.
who are experiencing the same thing. So, well, listen, sex ed isn't the only reason people watch porn, right? So,
Enough.
so what are some of the other reasons?
So it's interesting, people watch porn for all kinds of reasons. It's not just because they're horny, believe it or not. Like that's kind of the assumption
Yeah.
but that's as naive as saying people only eat when they're hungry.
Right. That's a great point.
I mean, people
Yeah.
eat for all kinds of reasons.
Right.
Why do we eat? Well, we're bored. Well,
Yeah.
there's something that looks good in the fridge. Are we hungry? No, but
Yeah.
it looks like
If it's chocolate and it's in front of me, I'm probably going to eat it.
right. Or maybe I'm depressed and I really don't feel like I need a break from my mood. I'll eat.
Yeah.
Right?
Or comfort food. Why do you think it's called comfort food?
Exactly.
You need comfort.
I'm lonely, so I'll eat.
Yeah.
But this is what porn does too. It serves all these functions. And basically, the more functions porn serves for you, probably the more important a role it's playing in your life,
Yeah.
whether you want it to or not.
Yeah. I can see people using it just to distract themselves from other things going on in their lives that they may not want to be thinking about, whether it's work or stress or bad relationships. Takes your brain to another place.
Right. And some people experience it as kind of a reset.
Yeah.
Like they can relax or just sort of physiologically get into a different
Yeah.
state.
And I don't think it's always, this sounds weird, sexual. And by what I mean is like there's no end purpose in watching it, right? Like sometimes people use porn because they're going to masturbate or something like that, right? Or to have sex or like warm up towards something. But I think some people it's everywhere now. It's so easy. It's on your phone.
Yeah.
You just, I've got some free minutes. Let me just watch. I'm alone.
Right.
Nobody can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to watch.
Right. I think that's the case a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's not here or there.
Yeah. I think it's called boredom porn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing to kind of look at. Well, what role does it serve in your life, and do you like that role? Is that the role you want it to serve? Just like people ask about food all the time, is food playing the role they want it to in their lives, or can they fine tune that in a way?
Yeah.
I think it's a good question, and not just assume. And there's no, and that this isn't because of a criticism or a shame. It's just a self-reflection.
Right. And right, and there are other reasons why people watch porn, right? Like some people watch porn because they're not having sex with anybody,
Right.
or they've got a partner and maybe they do have sex with somebody, but it's not happening as often as they'd like,
Or the kind of sex they want.
or it may not be the kind of sex they want, or it's just a different thing,
Right.
right? Mm-hmm. It's just a change up. Mm-hmm. Other reasons people watch porn?
I think I basically, when I have this conversation with my clients, I say it as many reasons as you eat is probably the same reasons.
Yeah.
At least some people watch porn. So it's that varied.
Yeah.
And so, there's also there's a significant number of people who think they watch porn too much when it's just really within what is typical.
Yeah.
But people can be so self-shaming about it that they can like put their own like this own self-criticism around it.
And I would say that it's also interesting. Now, I don't mean that like reading a book, but I remember having this epiphany when I was a child and going to the zoo, and I loved the zoos and I loved watching the animals, but most of the animals were boring to watch, and there were three things that were interesting: watching them eat, watching them go to the bathroom.
That's a guy thing, for sure.
And if they were having sex, oh my God.
Yeah.
Those were the three activities. And it's just interesting. Like it grabs your attention and you focus, whether you're interested in, you're not going to the zoo necessarily to watch animals copulate. No. But if it happens, like, whoa, this happened.
Man, I remember on my phone still, I have a video of these big mosquitoes having sex. I don't know why that.
Well, there you go. It's one of the few things that animals do that's generally of interest. So if
I wasn't invited, but somehow I found myself here, and I feel like I need to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. So a lot of different reasons people watch porn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it serves different needs, has different purposes. And we're just worried about the kids.
We are. I sure am worried about that.
I'm so glad you mentioned. I think that's an important topic. I haven't heard anybody talk about that before.
You know what else? Is that these kids who are now growing up, they're having, like we've talked about, more aggressive sex. They're also having less sex than they ever did.
Less sex with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I do wonder, like, if I had been first exposed to porn at age 12, which is so typical.
You and I might have never met.
Well, I wonder what I would think about sex. Would I even have wanted to be a sex therapist? Like, what would I think? If I thought that's what sex was, I can't tell you I would have wanted to be a sex therapist.
Yeah.
If that's what I thought the whole thing was.
Yeah. But let me just put in a word.
Okay.
So what we call porn includes a massive variety of stuff.
For sure.
Some of which can literally be described as lovemaking. And
that's the female porn.
It's still porn.
Okay.
It's still porn. And some of which is brutal.
Yes.
and some of which you can't do physically as a human being because it's all sci-fi alien stuff, who have different structures than we do coming out of whatever parts of their bodies, right? So it's an incredible variety of stuff, and I just want to make sure that we don't, some of the stuff that we may feel negatively about, that we don't label all porn that way. It's much too big for that.
Absolutely.
And I would probably include now, it's funny how the definitions slide over time too. But my equivalent, we talked about the Playboy magazines and stuff. I remember my first Playboy magazine, I think I was 12. And that served as porn.
Yeah.
Nobody was actually doing anything sexual.
Yeah.
But that was the equivalent, because the other stuff, I know it was around, but I didn't have access to anything there. I didn't see that till, young adulthood.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I do think I want to go back to what I just said, because I think it's interesting, which is these kids are having less sex than they ever did.
Yeah.
So is everybody, frankly.
Yeah.
But I do want to just contemplate that, like, what percentage of kids are seeing porn well before they're able to metabolize it? They think that's what sex is, and they're like, yeah, no, thank you. And now we're in a situation where AI is becoming more and more capable of providing not just sexual stimulation, but emotional connection. So now these kids are in a situation where nobody else has been, where they can now get tech to meet them right where they're at, wherever that is.
Oh my, that's a whole different level of this, isn't it?
Right. So they're going to get scared by the human connection, because they're seeing it before they're able to metabolize it. They're getting handed AI sexual connection in whatever version they want it. And what's going to happen to humanity? Like, I worry about this. I started a blog about this, 6 years ago now, because this stuff worries me. And I just get more and more worried all the time. The more I know, the more worried I get, not less.
Erin, I'm so glad you're talking about this out loud. I think it's an important topic for people to be paying attention to, and especially parents.
Yeah, especially parents who, as you said, are already overwhelmed by so many reasons. I get that, but this can't go to the wayside. This has got to become a front and center issue, and we'll keep talking about it. We could talk about how to have these sex ed talks, how to prepare them for tech.
Oh, wouldn't that be great? That's a great podcast.
All right,
let's do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thus ends.
Yes.
Another episode of The Sex Doctors. And we hope to see you again. Give us a like, write a review, give us a thumbs up, and most importantly, follow us so you don't lose any of this important content.
Yay.
Dr. Brandon, always a pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Morgentaler.
Bye-bye now.